Hi there, and welcome back to the greatest era of the Pokemon TCG. Thanks for coming back. I'm the Wizard, and today I am going to be talking about some new card ideas. As I was thinking about what I wanted to say in this video, and what I wanted to say in this video that I was going to plan at the same time, it actually made more sense for me to make this the sort of intro for the new card ideas video, and that's to simply talk about some of the outside influence on myself that has led me to this project, taking on some other ideas and creating new card types and card ideas for my version of the Pokemon TCG. So you see a couple examples here. So you've got Digimon there on the left, Magic the Gathering in the middle, and then Yu-Gi-Oh on the right. And each of these has different play styles, different rules that have kind of influenced some of these ideas for the new cards that I am going to propose and going to continue to work on. So in the Digimon card game, you don't take turns. You take your turn at the same time as your opponent, and then the attacks happen simultaneously, which is actually how the Pokemon video game works. But in terms of the trading card game, you take turns one at a time. One person takes their turn, then attacks. Then the other person takes their turn, then attacks. So the Digimon card game actually fits the Pokemon franchise better in terms of the flavor of that, because in the video game, both of you select which move you're going to do, and it's whoever is fastest that gets to go first and do their attack first, or use their ability first, or whatever. But in terms of the Pokemon trading card game, it has always been a one turn at a time sort of deal. And I think it would be too hard to rework that entirely, especially if everything else in the Pokemon TCG in my version of it is going to remain the same. But there are some things that are going to be available now on your opponent's turn, and I'll show you what that's going to look like here in a minute. In Magic the Gathering, you have the ability to play a card at any time, even in the middle of battle. So that was one thing that I would like to include in my version of the Pokemon TCG as well, is to be able to react to what your opponent is doing on your turn as well as theirs, and in the middle of an attack. And then being able to sacrifice a creature in Yu-Gi-Oh to bring out a stronger one. Now, Pokemon has the evolution mechanic, but I think that there is a big missed opportunity to do something like this in the Pokemon TCG. There have been times in like the anime or whatever where a Pokemon will give up some of its power, or sacrifice itself for its trainer or something of that nature. And I think it would be cool to include something like that in the TCG. So being able to take a Pokemon that's been damaged or something, and then discard it, get rid of the damage, and bring out a new and fresh Pokemon onto the bench, or something like that. As well as Yu-Gi-Oh also has the idea of being able to play on your opponent's turn with the idea of trap cards, which I always thought was a really neat a neat mechanic that Yu-Gi-Oh had. So now on to the new card ideas. So you can see that I've got the technical machine and then stadium cards here. So in one of my previous videos, I mentioned that Pokemon has not been against the idea of including new types of trainer cards. And trainer cards is especially where they've done this type of thing. And technical machines and stadium cards are two of the ways that they've done that. Technical machines have been reworked, and I would like to rework them. I think it's silly that a technical machine in excuse me, in the video games now is reusable, but technical machines in the trading card game, as far as I'm aware, still are one use only. So the fact that this darkness cube needs to be discarded at the end of the turn, or after it's been used, was kind of silly to me. If you play the technical machine, you want to use that attack, you should be able to use that attack as if it were that Pokemon's attack, because that's the way that it works in the video game. So that makes sense to me. And stadium cards should actually be split into multiple types of cards, because not all of the places that are put on stadium cards are stadiums. So splitting out stadium cards into stadiums versus something else like locations or places of interest, something like that. So I haven't quite nailed down what the title of that is going to be, but I'll show you a couple examples of that in just a second. So some of the trainer card types over the years. So they introduced stadiums in the gym sets. So we saw one of those just a moment ago. Pokemon tools have always been around. If you look at Plus Power here, this basically was the earliest version of a Pokemon tool, but it simply was put into the effect text. There was no special text here like you see on this focus band, where it says that you attach it to your Pokemon as long as it doesn't have a tool attached, which meant that you could have a focus band and play Plus Power on a Pokemon if you were doing the expanded base to Neo format. So both of these cards would be included in your card pool. So Pokemon tools are also one of the things that could be expanded upon, because not everything that gets attached to a Pokemon card would function exactly like this. So having another type of card that isn't a Pokemon tool card, but it functions very much like a Pokemon tool could be a fun thing to include. And then we've also got supporters that have been introduced. Professor Elm was really the earliest, but the supporter class of trainer card didn't get introduced until the E-Series. So you can see that Copycat here was one of the more successful versions of this early on. So it says that you can only play one supporter card, and then you leave it next to your active, and then when your turn ends after you attack, then you would discard it. That keeps track of the fact that you've already played a supporter card for this turn. Well, Professor Elm gets played, it's discarded right away, but then you can't play trainer cards anymore. And it's not only supporter cards that can't be played, it's any trainer cards. But Professor Elm has been reworked in later sets as a supporter card, which makes perfect sense. And again, the technical machines, which I showed before with that darkness cube, those were also introduced in the E-Series or the e-reader sets. Now, the nice thing about the fact that Pokemon has done this, that they've included Pokemon tools, supporter cards, stadiums, is that they have increased the complexity and the interactivity between all these different types of cards. So on your side of the field, you can play regular trainers, you can have a Pokemon tool attached to each one of your Pokemon, you can play a supporter card, and then you can also play regular trainers on top of that. Now, the bad thing about their decision to call them trainer cards is that even early on, the trainer cards weren't trainers. So the word trainer in the Pokemon universe means a person who catches Pokemon, raises them, and battles them against other trainers. But in the TCG, a trainer card is an action card that does some sort of effect, so that way you get an advantage over your opponent, whether it's drawing cards or removing damage counters or other effects, like the effects that I'm talking about. So the fact that they shoehorn themselves in by calling these cards trainers instead of poke actions or something like that, although that would be kind of cheesy, it's just the first thing that came to mind. But you get the idea. So the fact that these are trainer cards and not action cards or something else really limited their creativity early on, I think, because instead of having every one of these trainers, who Professor Elm could be classified as a trainer, having these trainers have a particular type of effect on the play, the battle, versus an item card like we have with plus power, affecting them in different ways. Excuse me again. Trainer cards are simply the things that don't attack each other, and it's not the energy to get there. So by introducing new trainer card types, we can kind of give classifications to these, so that way it's not just everything that's a trainer card is a non-Pokemon and non-energy type of card. So my goal with this idea, and including new trainer card types, is to give better clarity and to have classification for some of these things. And that way we can track the interactivity between each of these. So that way we can decide whether a particular class of trainer card is too strong and needs to be nerfed, or if it's too weak and needs to be buffed a little bit. So on top of that, there have been a few ideas that have either been abandoned or not done exactly correctly in the past, and I'd like to give those a crack as well. The first one you can see here is the idea of a held item. So a held item functions similarly to both an ability and a Pokemon tool, but it's another level of complexity. So if you have a Pokemon card that's got a held item and your opponent has a power, like think of Garbotoxin, or early on Muck's Toxic Gas Pokemon power that turns off other Pokemon powers, this is not a Pokemon power, so it would not be affected. Also, if you think of some of the Pokemon tool cards that could be taken away by other effects or trainer cards, this is also not one of those, because this is a held item. So it's a different classification, and different classifications allow for more complexity. So you can have more things happening at one time, as well as you can protect yourself from effects of certain cards, which I think would be a neat feature. Light Pokemon especially did not get very good treatment back when they were originally in play back in the Neo era. They simply didn't have enough support. Dark Pokemon had plenty of support with Boss's Way and the darkness type of energy, which was able to be used without the downside of giving the damage every turn. So having some support for light Pokemon, as well as having them work better together, having a team of light Pokemon that are on your side of the field that support each other, as well as just give a little boost, I think would be a fun thing. And the artwork on these was really pretty, so I'd like to bring some of those cards back. The Team Rocket's Secret Machine didn't really have anything else going for them except for the fact that they did nasty things sometimes. So they were, in theory, a really good concept, but they were basically just other item cards. So having some sort of effect, or not effect text, that's the wrong way to put it. So like the text here on the Pokemon tool that gives it the classification rules, so the Pokemon tools function in this way. I think it would be neat to have something like that for the Rocket Secret Machine. And one thing that I had thought was it would be really simple just to say that you need to have a Pokemon with Rocket in its name, or it would need to be a dark Pokemon or a darkness type in order to use one of these, and then that would give you a particular play style. So that would make it obvious the way that a Rocket's deck is supposed to play, or a dark type deck is supposed to play. But I haven't really put forth any of the play testing to see if that would actually work in practice yet or not. But I just thought that that was kind of a lame way to do this, that Rocket Secret Machines were Rocket machines, but it was basically just an item card. And then finally, owners or teams Pokemon. The Team Aqua and Team Magma Pokemon decks were one of the only times that this actually was competitive at the highest level. You had the dark types from Generation 2, but I don't see that as like a teams Pokemon, because the Rockets Pokemon weren't that great. So like your Rockets Scyther, Rockets Hitmonchan, the Rockets Haymaker wasn't actually as strong as just base Haymaker back in the day. So I'd like to give this a refresh. And of course, on the last video that I did, I showed some of my Nathaniel's trainer Pokemon, and having some synergy between these was the reason why Team Aqua's Kyogre and Team Magma's Groudon were effective, because here you've got the number of Pokemon in play, yours and your opponent's, that has Team Aqua and its name is 3 or less. Team Aqua's Kyogre can attack. So meaning you have to have probably 4 Team Aqua's Pokemon on your side of the field in order to use Team Aqua Kyogre's attacks, because your opponent isn't necessarily going to have any Team Aqua cards. So this made it necessary for you to have other Team Aqua's cards. So you couldn't have Team Aqua's Kyogre and then have a light light Azumarill, your light water type Pokemon, and have them work together. It needed to be a Team Aqua's Kyogre and a Team Aqua deck in order to be effective, because this disallowed that from working. And if you want to say that it's going to stifle or lessen creativity, I would actually say that that's not true. It's been said that limiting your options or putting boundaries on things actually expands creativity. So the fact that the Team Aqua's Kyogre still worked and was able to compete at the highest level is a testament to that. So having this restriction, and not an actual restriction, like obviously you could have played Team Aqua's Kyogre with just regular water cards and you could have hoped that it worked, but this restriction here that you needed at least 3 Pokemon or more on your side of the field in order to attack made that pretty difficult in practice to actually do. So that would be my idea for owner's Pokemon, to make them more synergistic with each other and have it be a benefit to do that. So a couple of new trainer card types that I've been thinking about, and we'll play test and see how these actually work. So different trainer classes. I mentioned that all trainer cards are just your action cards that let you do whatever you want. So having a trainer class, I've already floated out the idea of gym leader. Oops. So gym leaders, obviously very key component to the video games, giving them a trainer card that's specific to them, and only one of them can be played on your side of the field at a time. So think the new Digimon card game and their partners. So you've got Ty, Matt, TK, Sora, Joe, those people. Now they can have multiple copies of those on the field at the same time, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. So in your gym sets, you had all the different gym leaders and the gym leader's name. So Brock, Misty, Erica, Lieutenant Surge, their name was just the title. And having the gym leader classification would allow this for, again, the type, the classification, the effect text that goes with it, as well as the fact that only one could be played at a time, and that would allow for some more depth and more complexity to your turn. Elite Four members and becoming the champion is the whole goal of the video game. So having an Elite Four class of trainer card could be cool. And then the other one that I thought would be fun is the professor. The professors all have their own card, and typically it's just discard your hand and draw 7, or shuffle your hand back into your deck and draw 7. But having each of them included and giving them a class of trainer card could allow, again, for some creativity. The next one, which I already showcased when I was looking at the Nathaniel's set, is the idea of a song. So I am a former athlete, and it was always easier to go to practice and easier to lift weights and put in the work outside of practice and the games when I was listening to music. So having a song card would function in a similar way. So it would boost some type of Pokemon, and it would be active for a particular number of turns. So similar to how a song is only so long until you finish that one and have to start the next one, a song card would be active for a particular number of turns, and that number would depend on the song and the card itself. Again, that would allow for some play testing. Is this too long? Is it too short? Should we change the length of this, or should we change the effect of it? So I think that would be a fun inclusion. Here's where the reaction cards, and I don't know if that's the actual name of the class of card that I want to go with, but it's a placeholder for now. And this is the one that you'd be able to activate on your opponent's turn. So the TV show, they would simply shout dodge it to their Pokemon, and then they would dodge the attack. I always thought that was weird, that was the way that they would dodge, instead of, like in the video game, the percentages for the accuracy was how a Pokemon would dodge. But having this ability to do something on your opponent's turn would allow for something like this. Yes, I know that in the trading card game, it comes down to coin flips oftentimes. So if you think of Clefairy back in the Neo days, where you had to flip a heads in order to even attack a baby Pokemon, that could be seen as the same thing. But in this case, on your opponent's turn, you would be allowed to dictate that. So if you had a card that you played that said that your opponent had to flip a coin, and if tails, their attack fails and their turn ends, that would be a fun little wrinkle that you could throw in. So Pokemon hasn't really had too many options to play on your opponent's turn, and I'd like to try to see how that works out. Also, I think it's silly that they've never done that with Pokemon powers too. So the same kind of idea, flip a coin. If tails, your opponent's attack fails, or flip a coin. If heads, this Pokemon now takes the damage from the attack if that Pokemon was on the bench or something else. And then finally, the locations. So stadiums have functioned for basically all places, but not every place in the Pokemon world is a stadium, and not every place would be appropriate for a battle. Although in the TV show, sometimes that's exactly what happens. But it would be neat to have both a location and a stadium active at the same time. So the problem with having a stadium card is, if your opponent plays a stadium that benefits them but not you, you don't gain anything from that stadium. You would need to find a stadium in your own deck and play it to replace this one. If you could have a location and a stadium, now it could be that the location benefits you, the stadium benefits your opponent. But I also am not sure if I want it to function that way. If I would rather have the stadium benefit both, or be a neutral thing that would benefit both, and then the location benefit one or the other of the trainers. I'm not exactly sure how I'd want that to do, but it does allow, again, for depth and creativity. I also wanted to bring up the fact that there are a lot of effects in the show and the video games that haven't been in the trading card game. So weather and field hazards are two of the ones that I thought would be actually pretty easy to include. So you have weather effects that come into play based on a Pokemon's ability or a particular attack in the video game. And it would be pretty easy to just print the effects of these on a card and then play it like you would a stadium. And then same thing with the field hazards. So you've got those that are on just one side of the field. So the field hazards, so you lay down rocks or ground spikes or poison spikes, toxic spikes, and those affect every single Pokemon that gets put into play. So there have been field hazard-like effects. So in the Rocket set, I believe it was Dark Dugtrio, that anytime your opponent would switch between a bench Pokemon and their active Pokemon, you would flip a coin, and if the result was heads, then you would deal 20 damage. This is basically that, just in effect form. So it wouldn't just be that one Pokemon that does that damage by that effect. This is an actual classification now. So if you've got 3 or 4 different Pokemon that can lay down toxic spikes, now you've got toxic spikes on the other side, and your opponent has to deal with that every time they come into play. And let's say that they remove those, or like your Pokemon that laid those down has now been knocked out. Well, another Pokemon can come in. It's not the same Pokemon, but it has that same idea where it can lay down toxic spikes, and now your opponent has to deal with it again. So thought that would be a fun thing to include, and also the flavor of that fits with the Pokemon TCG. I copied this thing down, so the reaction is still here. Sorry about that. We already talked about that one. But then the other thing that I would like to reintroduce, and I don't know if it ever made it over in the English version. I stopped playing after the Neo sets, so I don't know if any of the special tokens, but I do know that there was a Hungry Snorlax that was released in Japan, and it created these tokens that you would put on Hungry Snorlax, and then based on the number of them, it would do different things. So special tokens that do multiple things. So you take just a coin or a dice or something, and you put it on your Hungry Snorlax, and then each time you do that effect, you increase the number of them, and then at a certain point, it's beneficial to you. And there could be Pokemon powers that are turned off or turned back on by special tokens. Again, this is all in favor of having more complexity and more options, more creativity, more options for play, more options for deck building, and more options for different ideas from the Pokemon universe to make it into the TCG. So now that I've rambled on and on about that, how does this look, and how can we put this into our Magic set editor form? Well, if we go into this, create a new one. I just like the way that the trainer cards in the E-Series look. So if we go down here and make it into a trainer card, and then down here we've got the user defined, and then we can simply change what this says. So this is where it would say supporter card, stadium card, or whatever else. We could change it to say gym leader. Let's say we wanted the gym leader's name to be Randall. So Randall is now a gym leader. We don't know what he looks like or anything yet, but Randall's going to be our gym leader. And then we can have the effect text here, so then that would be true for all of your gym leaders. So you would just keep a copy of this, and then you would copy and paste what it says about your gym leaders, excuse me, to copy into all of your other gym leader cards. And then let's say you wanted to change this one, and you wanted him to be a professor. And now Professor Randall is now your Pokemon Professor. You say all your stuff about Pokemon Professor goes here at the top, and again, you can save this here, copy it when you create a new professor, paste it into that new professor's classification line here, tells you what they do, and then location, and then again, what does the location do and how is that different from a stadium? That would be here, and then you can copy and paste that to all your other locations, and then the effect text would just go underneath it. So I believe that was all I wanted to share with you guys today. So if you are interested in following along with this journey, if you want to continue to see how I make my Pokemon card sets and you would like to make them alongside me, maybe print out your own and play in person, that will be hopefully my next video. My camera came in the mail, so I'm going to set it up pretty soon, and I will have a demonstration video on how I cut out my cards and put them in sleeves, and then I'll do a little mock battle for you, as well as showcase the cards in real life. So looking forward to that. I hope you are too. If you want to keep following along, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, commenting, liking the video, and sharing it with somebody else who also loves Pokemon and might be interested in this, I would appreciate it. Thanks so much, and until I see you again, see ya.